For a while, I often thought about how people treat one another amidst the ebb and flow of life. I recall an old story from the time the Buddha was still in this world. Back then, there was a man filled with resentment who sought out the place where the Buddha was meditating, just to hurl bitter insults at him. Harsh and venomous words poured out of him, as if he wanted to vent all the grievances of the human world onto the enlightened one. But strangely, the only response to that tempest was a vast silence. The Buddha remained seated there, his expression calm, his eyes still, looking through the agitation of the man before him. When the man grew exhausted and stopped, the Buddha gently asked a question. If someone brings a gift to give to another, but the recipient refuses to take it, then to whom does that gift belong? Without a second thought, the man replied immediately that it naturally still belongs to the one who brought it. Hearing this, the Buddha smiled and said, "Today you brought malicious insults. I have decided not to accept them. Therefore those words now belong to you." Telling this old story is not to praise a distant greatness, but to see something incredibly close to the way we live. Many people tirelessly seek peace in far-off places, thinking that Buddhism is about going to temples, chanting sutras, or lighting fragrant incense to pray. But when we slow down and look a little deeper into ourselves, we realize that the way is not located on a silent altar, but lies right within our breath, in every heartbeat of this life. The path is not meant for worship. It is meant to be lived, to be breathed, and to be harmonized with all things around us. Through thousands of years, humans have always had the habit of joining their hands to pray for the heavens and earth to grant them a peaceful life, praying for storms to pass and for suffering not to strike. However, the Enlightened One never taught us to pray to escape suffering. He pointed out a naked yet profound truth. Humans suffer not necessarily because life is too cruel, but because the mind within is too fragile to withstand the weight of impermanence. Just look around. The same rain falling in the middle of the street might make one person angry because it soils their new clothes, but another might feel light-hearted, enjoying the cool water nourishing the thirsty trees. Faced with the same event, such as losing a job or experiencing a breakup, one person might sink into resentment and despair, viewing it as the end of the world, while another smiles and accepts it as an opportunity to start over. Life inherently presents the same plays, but the way each person performs determines whether they bring home tears or smiles. If someone else faces the exact same tragic circumstances as you, but remains calm and at ease while you are writhing in exhaustion, then clearly, the root of the problem has never been in the external circumstances. Ultimately, everything lies in how we perceive and react to the world around us. Ancient teachings call this the mind leading all phenomena. The mind paints the scene. The mind creates joy and sorrow. I am reminded of the story of the monk Kakupala, who was blind but still diligently practiced walking meditation day and night. Because his eyes could no longer see the light, his footsteps accidentally trampled on tiny living creatures on the ground. When the other monks saw this, they were troubled and believed he had created great bad karma through the act of killing. However, when the matter reached the Buddha's ears, he compassionately explained that because there was absolutely no intention to kill in the blind monk's mind, he was not guilty. Guilt or merit, suffering or bliss, all are born from the internal intention at the beginning, not from the external form or the judgment of the outer shell. If the mind is pure and free of ill intent, then even the most ironic circumstances cannot stain the purity of the soul. We often lock ourselves in the invisible cages of our own attachments. Day after day, we exhaust ourselves chasing desires, trying to mold the world to fit our exact wishes. We want this person to be better to us. We want our work to be smoother. We want tomorrow to be brighter than today. But how can one use tiny hands to cover the entire sky? The Buddha's teachings begin at the very end of that helplessness, opening another path. It is not about straining to change the vast world, but about quietly returning to refine oneself. Human attachment is sometimes truly strange. It is heavier than any boulder in the world. Once, two Zen masters named Tanzan and Aikido were traveling together along a muddy road after a heavy rain. When they reached a flooded stream, they met a beautiful girl who was struggling to find a way across. Without hesitation, Tanzan stepped forward, gently carried the girl to the other side on his back, set her down, and then continued his journey. Aikido walked beside him, his heart churning with undercurrents of resentment. This discomfort gnawed at the monk's mind for hours because he believed that a monastic should not touch a woman so freely, as doing so violated the precepts. When he could no longer endure that invisible torment, Aikido finally spoke up to reproach his companion. At that moment, Tanzan turned to him with eyes full of compassion and replied that he had left the girl by the stream a long time ago. Why was his brother still carrying her in his mind until now? That answer was as light as a breeze, yet it awakened an entire realm of delusion. Our suffering is exactly like that of the monk Aikido. The event passed long ago. The person who hurt us has already left. Yet we ourselves continue to carry those injustices, those angers, and those humiliations for the rest of our lives. We cannot let go, so we suffer. We delude ourselves into thinking that we are in pain because that person was cruel. But in reality, it is because we keep nourishing that pain in every thought, refusing to set it down. The outside world is merely the streams flowing through our lives. Whether or not we carry those heavy burdens to the other side is a choice made by our own minds. Spiritual practice, understood deeply, is not a supernatural miracle to fly to the Buddha realms, but simply a journey of learning how to correct oneself every day, learning how to stop. Speaking of the word stop, I remember the heavy footsteps of the bandit Angulimala from long ago. He was a man who had slid deep into delusion, his hands stained with blood, driven by the intent to kill enough people to achieve the dark path he believed in. When he saw the Buddha passing through the forest, he drew his sword and chased him frantically, his murderous intent slicing through the dust. But the strange thing was, no matter how much he exhausted his strength to run, he could never reach the leisurely, slow footsteps of the person walking ahead of him. Both confused and enraged, he screamed at the Buddha to stop. Amidst the silence of the deep forest, the warm, yet soul-stirring voice of the enlightened one rang out. I have stopped a long time ago. It is you who has not yet stopped, who has not yet. The stopping the Buddha spoke of was not the halting of physical feet, but the cessation of a soul chasing after darkness, stopping the wicked mind, and stopping the swirling ignorance and afflictions within. And with just that one sentence, the blade in the killer's hand fell, awakening a lost soul to return to the refuge of the light of compassion. Reflecting on reality, amidst the hectic whirl of the human world, how many truly learn to stop like that? We tirelessly race against time, against fame, and against petty calculations of gain and loss. The more we run, the more we feel we lack. The more we chase, the more exhausted we become. There are times when just a look of disapproval or a casual criticism is enough for us to dive into heated arguments, determined to win. But what is victory for when the soul is overgrown with the weeds of hatred and delusion? To stop is to know how to take a step back to see the vast sea and the high sky. When we begin to withdraw our outward desires and turn our gaze inward to mend the holes in our soul, that is when the path of the Dharma truly opens. Therefore, walking on the path of awakening does not require you to don solemn robes or memorize thick volumes of scriptures. It begins with the smallest, simplest things in daily life. When you reduce one instance of baseless anger, reduce your attachment to the mistakes of others. Or reduce your petty calculations of gain and loss by even a little. Then in that very moment, you are on the right path. Every day you wake up and open your eyes to welcome the dawn. Tell yourself to practice living more gently. Reduce one harsh word that hurts the person across from you, for words fade away, but the scars in the heart remain forever. Reduce one negative, pessimistic thought to leave yourself a way out amidst the tumult of pressure. Reduce one instance of competition or grasping to feel your shoulders suddenly become light. This life already has too many wounds carved by time. Why must we hold the knife ourselves and slash more invisible gashes into our own hearts? Refining oneself is to wash away the mist of the prideful ego, revealing the clear and gentle original mind that has always been there. When the heart is at peace, Everything around naturally becomes lovely and worth living for. You will no longer blame the rain for soaking your shoulders, nor will you feel troubled by the coldness of human nature, because deep down, you understand that everything comes and goes according to its own causes and conditions. Live in harmony with nature and keep your mind as still as an autumn lake without a ripple. Then one day, even if a storm gathers at your doorstep, you can still smile peacefully, brew a pot of tea, and leisurely enjoy the flavor of tranquility. The way, after all, is simply living fully, compassionately, and peacefully in every present breath like that.